I was thinking about planning a trip, but didn't really know where to start. That was me a few years ago. I had no idea where to start planning trips. It was like just this huge thing to do. You've got so many things in it that you don't really know where to start. But now, after many years of planning trips, like 2 month trips, 3 month trips, 1 year trips, I've got to the point that I really actually know how to break the whole thing down. And instead of seeing it as one huge, big task that really stresses me out, to just break it down into easy to follow steps, which makes the whole process a lot easier and more manageable. That's the purpose of this video. We're going to go through all those steps that you need to take to plan this trip of yours. So step one, we always like to start from our budget. So how much money do we want to spend, and how much do those places that we're looking into cost to go there? So if we've got a low budget, it wouldn't make sense that we go somewhere that is expensive. Most importantly, if you've got a low budget, the lower the destination is, the more you'll get. For example, if you like some kind of luxury and things in a cheap destination, obviously those kind of things would be cheaper, and you're able to get that kind of luxury without going over your budget. So that is where we like to start. Some other people start from other places, like they just look into the destination and don't really take into account their budget. But then what happens is they usually spend more than they had intended because they didn't really know how much that place costs. So step two, once you've decided on the destination you want to go, is start to looking into the entry requirements, and this is really important, especially right now. And one thing I have to say is, don't presume that the entry requirements that dated back about a year or two ago still apply now. If you've been somewhere and you, for example, got a visa on arrival when you got there, or like free entry visa or anything like that, don't presume those things apply anymore, because probably they don't. A lot of places around the world have completely changed the entry requirements, and we can say this from our personal experience coming into Indonesia, is where we're actually filming this. We're in quarantine right now in Indonesia. The entry requirements here, back when we came about a year and a half ago, were just you come here, you get to the airport, you get a visa on arrival, and that's it. This time it was a bit more complicated. You had to get the visa about a month before we're coming here. When we were supposed to be coming here, there was a complete lockdown, so that's something else that you really need to consider. When you've found your destination, look into the requirements, and also look into the current situation of that place. If that place seems to be getting an increase in cases, maybe you'll go or maybe you don't. So what I mean to say is be flexible right now. About the entry requirements, you need to look into the visa, how to actually get that visa. And most importantly, start off by going onto the official website of that destination where you're going and look into the immigration requirements for foreigners to get in. That's probably the most accurate information you can get, because if you go on other websites or anything not related to the government of that place, even if you go on your country's website of travel website, maybe that won't be updated, but of that destination it will be up to date. But a few things that are synonymous to a lot of destinations right now are travelers or tourists going there to be fully vaccinated, have a PCR test which is 72 hours before boarding the plane or 48 hours. The few other things are that have remained the same. You'll need 6 months validity on your passport. Obviously it doesn't have to be expired, and you need at least 6 months on it. And if you're going somewhere where you will need a visa, you'll need 2 blank pages for that. And this is really important to think of well in advance of your trip, because passport, you can't just get it now and then. Sometimes it takes a week, 2, maybe 3 weeks to get. So really think of your passport well in advance before you travel.
In this step, start off by researching what you want to do in your destination, including restaurants to try, transport options for getting around, common scams, and best time to go. We suggest getting ideas from personal blogs of people who have visited the place, Instagram accounts of locals for hidden gems, Pinterest, and YouTube videos. Once you have gathered a list of ideas, pin all these ideas into a Google map. This will give you a perspective of where things are. For example, you will know if an attraction is far off or a hotel is in the middle of nowhere. That way, you will know what is realistically possible in your trip duration. You will also need to decide when you want to go. Will you go during the peak busy season when the weather is great, or during the low season when the weather is not so great but prices are better and there's less crowds? In this step, you are making a commitment to your trip by booking flights and later on accommodation. Whenever we get to the point of booking flights, we always first check flight aggregators like Kiwi.com to get an idea of flight prices. However, we book flights on Kiwi.com only when the trip involves one flight. This is because trips having more than one flight are usually with different airlines, which are independent of each other. And if one flight is cancelled, it will negatively affect the rest of the trip. For accommodation, if it's a short trip, we pre-book all accommodations in advance. If it's a longer one, we leave some room for change and being spontaneous, so we don't book all accommodation in advance.
One thing we never travel without is travel insurance. Now, I know most times travel insurance is just a waste of money, because actually you won't need it every time you travel. But the truth is you won't know you need it until you actually do. So it's good to be prepared for anything that could go wrong. Misconception is that travel insurance costs us enough money, which is really not true. Actually, the travel plan we buy, which is travel medical insurance by Safetywing, only costs $50 a day. But whichever travel insurance you're considering, whether it's Safetywing like we buy or anything else, always make sure that medical coverage is adequate. And also, right now, it's really important that your travel insurance also covers COVID related issues, like for example hospitalization. Always make sure to read the fine print. I know it will take time and some things you probably won't understand, but always make sure to go through that to understand what you're covered for. And if there's something that you don't really understand, always contact the insurance and tell them to explain that thing further. Don't just take it for granted that insurance will cover you for everything. It won't. It will have certain things that it will cover you for and certain things that it won't. Like for example, certain activities or extreme sports it won't be covered, and certain others will. So it's good to know which are. So I guess you're about ready planning your trip. All is left to do is to start packing your bag. But before you begin packing a bunch of stuff, think well about your trip and what you'll be actually doing while you're there. Like for example, are you going to be doing hiking, beaches, visiting the city? That way, knowing in advance what you'll be going to do will help you determine what you actually need and eliminate you packing unnecessary stuff that you won't need once you're there. Start off with less packing space. If you've got more packing space, if you've got big luggage or big backpacks, it's like inevitable to try and fill every bit of space that you've got in those till there's no space left. Pack versatile clothes that you can use on different occasions. For example, what I pack are colours that all go well together, like all my trousers and all my tops all go well together. So then if you're going on a longer trip, you can always wash your clothes on the go. A lot of hostels, hotels, all these places all offer laundry. The main purpose of packing less is to easily move around. Imagine for example getting on boats or trains or buses with loads of luggage. We've done that before. In the beginning of our trips we had like 3-foot big rolling luggages that were really awkward to get on buses and boats and all these things. This video was about the steps we take to plan all our trips. But one last piece of advice is to always leave some space in between all the activities and things you'll be going to do. This will allow you to do spontaneous things, and apart from that, putting too many things into your travel plan will make it a bit stressful and maybe you won't even manage to keep up with that plan. Overplanning is just as bad as underplanning.